You cannot protect your kidneys if you still eat these 5 meats. Here's a number that stops most people in their tracks. According to the CDC, roughly 37 million American adults are living with chronic kidney disease, and up to 9 in 10 of them don't know it yet. No pain, no dramatic symptoms, just 2 organs quietly filtering about 200 quarts of blood every single day, slowly absorbing damage from choices made 3 times a day, every single day, at the dinner table. And here's the part that catches people off guard. It's rarely dessert or the occasional treat that does the damage. Researchers at institutions like Johns Hopkins and the National Kidney Foundation point to something far more routine: the meat sitting on the plate at nearly every American meal. Not all meat is equal, and some everyday choices carry hidden sodium loads, preservatives, and compounds formed during processing or high-heat cooking that place measurable extra strain on your kidney's filtering system over years, not days. You won't feel it happening. That's exactly the problem. 5 common meats, still sitting in refrigerators and grocery carts across the country right now, carry the strongest evidence behind this slow, silent strain. Stick around, because meat number 3 is one almost nobody sees coming. Before we name the first one, it helps to understand exactly why meat, of all foods, plays such an outsized role in kidney stress, because this mechanism gets skipped in almost every other health video on this topic. If you want research explaining this clearly on a regular basis, go ahead and subscribe now, because understanding this one mechanism will make everything else in this video click into place. Every time you eat protein, your kidneys have to filter out the metabolic byproducts, primarily a compound called urea, along with sodium, phosphorus, and other minerals attached to that protein source. According to research summarized by the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases, healthy kidneys handle this workload just fine. But what you're eating alongside that protein, whether it's excess sodium, chemical preservatives, or compounds formed by high-heat cooking, can compound that workload significantly over time. This is exactly why 2 people eating the same amount of protein can place very different levels of stress on their kidneys, depending entirely on which meats they choose and how those meats were processed or prepared. The first meat on this list is bacon, and the issue isn't really the meat itself, it's what's been done to it. A typical 3-slice serving of bacon can contain over 400 milligrams of sodium, and according to guidance from the American Heart Association, that's more than a quarter of many older adults' recommended daily limit in just a few bites. High sodium intake forces the kidneys to retain more water to dilute that sodium in the bloodstream, which raises blood volume and, in turn, blood pressure, a well-documented driver of long-term kidney vessel damage tracked extensively by the National Kidney Foundation. Bacon also contains nitrites, preservatives used to extend shelf life and preserve color, which under high-heat cooking can form compounds called nitrosamines, substances that researchers have studied for their potential role in oxidative stress within blood vessels, including the small vessels inside the kidneys. A reasonable approach isn't necessarily zero bacon forever, but treating it as an occasional food, no more than once or twice a month, rather than a weekly breakfast staple. The most common mistake people make is assuming turkey bacon solves the problem, when in reality, many turkey bacon products carry nearly identical sodium levels due to the curing process itself. This matters most for adults already managing hypertension or early kidney concerns, where sodium sensitivity tends to be higher. People on blood pressure medications, particularly ACE inhibitors, should be especially mindful, since high sodium intake can work directly against how these medications are trying to help. Warning signs of sodium overload can include unusual puffiness around the ankles or eyes and unexplained thirst, though these signs are nonspecific and always warrant a doctor's evaluation rather than self-diagnosis. The surprising discovery here, even reduced sodium bacon often still contains 30 to 40% of a full daily sodium value in a single serving, meaning the healthier label frequently creates a false sense of security. Before we reveal the second meat, here's a quick gut check. How many of the 5 meats on this list do you think you're already eating weekly? Drop your guess in the comments, because most people are surprised by their own number once they actually count it up. The second meat is deli and cold cuts. The ham, turkey, and salami piled onto sandwiches millions of Americans eat for lunch without a second thought. What makes deli meat particularly concerning isn't just sodium, though a couple of slices can easily carry 500 to 800 milligrams depending on the brand. It's the addition of phosphate additives, synthetic compounds used to retain moisture and extend shelf life, that research reviewed by the Cleveland Clinic has flagged as a growing concern. Unlike the natural phosphorus found in whole foods, which the body absorbs at a rate of roughly 40 to 60%, these synthetic additive forms of phosphorus are absorbed at closer to 90%, creating a much heavier mineral load for the kidneys to filter and regulate. Over years of regular consumption, that elevated phosphorus burden has been studied for its potential connection to vascular calcification, a process where excess mineral buildup can stiffen blood vessels, including those feeding the kidneys. A practical guideline is limiting deli meat to once a week at most, choosing lower sodium, nitrate-free versions when available, and reading ingredient labels for words like phosphate or sodium phosphate, rather than trusting front-of-package marketing. The common mistake here is assuming natural or uncured labeling means additive-free, when many of these products simply substitute celery powder, which still delivers a concentrated natural nitrate source with a similar net effect. This is especially relevant for older adults, since aging kidneys naturally become somewhat less efficient at excreting excess phosphorus, according to physiological changes documented through Harvard Medical School aging research. Anyone taking phosphate-binding medications for existing kidney concerns should be particularly cautious, since consistently high dietary phosphate intake can work directly against how those medications are managing mineral balance. A little-known fact: a single deli sandwich can sometimes contain more sodium than an entire bag of potato chips, simply because sodium hides in the meat, the cheese, and the bread all at once, stacking up quietly across a single meal. Now here comes a meat that catches almost everyone off guard, because it's often marketed as a lean, healthier choice, and yet the research behind it tells a very different story depending entirely on how it's cooked. If this next part surprises you the way it surprised us researching it, that's exactly the kind of moment worth hitting that like button for. The third meat is well done or charred red meat, particularly steak or burgers cooked at very high temperatures until deeply browned or blackened at the edges. The concern here isn't red meat itself in moderate amounts, but a group of compounds called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, along with heterocyclic amines, which form when meat is cooked at high heat for extended periods, especially through grilling, pan-searing, or broiling until well done. Research out of Mount Sinai's Icahn School of Medicine has specifically studied dietary AGEs and their association with increased oxidative stress and inflammation markers in the bloodstream, both of which place additional strain on kidney blood vessels over time. This is a genuinely different mechanism from sodium or phosphorus. It's about the cooking method transforming the meat itself into something your body has to work harder to process. A reasonable approach is choosing medium rare to medium doneness, when possible, since AGE formation increases significantly with both temperature and cooking time, and trimming visible charred portions before eating rather than considering them a flavorful bonus. The common mistake most people make is assuming grilled automatically means healthy, when the direct high heat of grilling is actually one of the highest AGE-generating cooking methods available, compared to gentler methods like braising or slow roasting. This matters most for adults managing metabolic syndrome or type 2 diabetes, since research has suggested people with elevated blood sugar may already have higher baseline AGE levels, compounding the dietary contribution from charred meat. There's no major direct medication interaction here, but anyone managing cardiovascular risk factors should pay particular attention, since AGEs have also been studied for their association with arterial stiffness. A serving size worth aiming for is about 3 to 4 ounces, roughly the size of a deck of cards, a few times a week rather than daily, paired with vegetables that carry antioxidant compounds to help offset some of the oxidative load. The surprising fact almost nobody knows: marinating meat in an acidic base like lemon juice or vinegar before cooking has been shown in preliminary research to meaningfully reduce AGE formation during high-heat cooking, making it one of the simplest, most overlooked kitchen fixes available. The fourth meat might be the most misunderstood item on this entire list, because it's often praised in certain diet circles as a nutrient powerhouse, and in some ways, it truly is. But there's a specific catch that changes the equation for kidney health, and it's exactly why we saved this one for later in the video. The fourth meat is organ meat, most commonly liver, which delivers an impressively dense nutrient profile including vitamin A, B12, and iron. The issue for kidney health centers on two things: purines and phosphorus. Organ meats are among the highest dietary sources of purines, compounds that break down into uric acid during digestion, and research tracked by the NIH has linked chronically elevated uric acid levels to increased risk of kidney stones and, in some studies, added strain on kidney filtration over time. Liver is also notably high in phosphorus, delivering roughly 400 to 500 milligrams per 3-ounce serving, a substantial load for kidneys already managing reduced filtration capacity. This is a case where the food isn't inherently bad, but rather a food that healthy kidneys can generally process in moderation, while kidneys under existing stress often cannot handle the same load without added difficulty, a distinction emphasized repeatedly in dietary guidance from the National Kidney Foundation. A sensible approach for most healthy adults is limiting organ meat to once every week or two, rather than treating it as a regular staple, and pairing it with plenty of water to support uric acid clearance. The common mistake is assuming that because a food is nutrient-dense, more is automatically better, when purine-rich foods specifically benefit from portion awareness regardless of their other nutritional merits. This is especially important for anyone with a personal or family history of gout or kidney stones, since both conditions are directly tied to uric acid and mineral handling. People taking uric acid-lowering medications, such as allopurinol, should be particularly mindful of consistent purine intake, since large fluctuations can complicate how well those medications manage uric acid levels. Warning signs worth never ignoring include sudden joint pain, particularly in the big toe, or sharp flank pain, both of which warrant prompt medical evaluation rather than dietary guesswork. The hidden fact here: chicken liver actually carries a notably higher purine concentration than beef liver, which surprises most people who assume poultry is automatically the lighter choice across the board. And now, the fifth and final meat, the one tied to a habit so common that most people don't even think of it as a separate category of meat consumption at all. Before we reveal it, subscribe if you've made it this far, because a video this thorough deserves to reach more people trying to understand their health, not just react to it. The fifth meat is processed sausage and hot dogs, a category that combines nearly every concern we've already covered into a single product. A single hot dog can carry upward of 500 milligrams of sodium, along with sodium nitrite as a preservative, and, frequently, added phosphate compounds for texture and shelf stability. What makes this category particularly worth flagging is the World Health Organization's classification of processed meat, based on extensive epidemiological research, as a category linked to increased long-term health risk when consumed frequently. A classification that reflects the cumulative effect of sodium, nitrites, and preservation chemistry working together, rather than any single ingredient in isolation. For kidney health specifically, the combined sodium and phosphate load functions much like deli meat, but often in even more concentrated form, since sausages and hot dogs are typically consumed in larger single-item portions at cookouts and casual meals. A reasonable approach is treating these as an occasional food, ideally no more than once or twice a month, and choosing versions explicitly labeled lower sodium or nitrate-free when they do make an appearance. The common mistake people make is assuming that because these foods are associated with casual, fun eating occasions like barbecues and ball games, the nutritional stakes are somehow lower, when in reality, portion sizes at these events tend to be larger than typical, not smaller. This category deserves particular caution from adults managing both blood pressure and blood sugar simultaneously, since the sodium load and the refined bun, typically served alongside it, can compound two separate metabolic stressors at once. There's no specific medication interaction tied to processed sausage beyond the general sodium concerns already discussed for blood pressure medications. Eating this category excessively, several times a week over years, has been associated in population studies with modestly higher long-term cardiovascular and kidney-related risk, though isolated occasional consumption carries a very different risk profile than daily habitual intake. The surprising fact to close on: many plant-based hot dog alternatives, while free of animal-derived nitrites, often still carry nearly identical sodium levels, meaning the swap helps far more with saturated fat than it does with the sodium concern we've been discussing throughout this video. It's worth being completely clear about something before wrapping up. None of these 5 meats are being labeled as forbidden, and enjoying any of them occasionally isn't the same as causing kidney damage. What the research consistently points to across institutions like Mayo Clinic, the National Kidney Foundation, and NIDIC is that frequency, portion size, and preparation method are what transform an occasional treat into a genuine long-term stressor on kidney function. If you already live with diagnosed chronic kidney disease, none of this general information should replace personalized guidance from your doctor or a renal dietitian, since individual sodium, phosphorus, and protein needs vary enormously from person to person. For most people without diagnosed kidney disease, the goal isn't elimination. It's awareness, moderation, and choosing preparation methods that work with your kidneys instead of quietly against them, one meal at a time. So tell us in the comments, which of these 5 meats surprised you the most? For a lot of viewers, it's not the one they expected going in. Hit subscribe if this kind of clear, research-backed breakdown is exactly what you've been looking for, and share this video with a family member or friend who could use a gentler nudge toward protecting their long-term health. And before you go, check out our next video, where we break down the everyday drink habit doctors say may be putting silent, unnecessary strain on your kidneys.